Good evening, everyone. Just giving it another little bit for people to join up. How many people do we have? Just gonna give another couple minutes. Thank you all for your patience. All right. I think we have enough people here to get started. Okay, I will call the meeting to order. First up, just our normal instructions on using Zoom for the general meeting. If you need to seek the floor, raise your hand by using the reactions button. I'll call on you in the order that you appear on the raise hand feature in Zoom. If we need to take a quick poll, we'll use the reactions button.
Yeah, I'm not getting any sound.
Sorry about that. Is everyone else able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes.
All right. If someone can put in the chat instructions on addressing that, please. Thanks. If we need to take a poll, we'll use reactions, the yes and no reaction. General chat is disabled right now. We are going to experiment this time with opening up the general chat when we have presentations from both Pramila Jayapal's office and from on the Seattle Redistricting, so you can ask your questions in chat. Please don't flood the chat with cross-talk and whatnot. That will make it hard for us to see what those questions are and whatnot. We are going to be live streaming on YouTube. And let's go on to the next slide then. Oh, come on. Again, our meeting norms: treat each other with dignity and respect. If you have a question, please ask. Step up, ask questions. You can ask questions in chat. You can raise your hand. Also, step back. Don't hog the time. Allow others to also ask questions. Remember, everyone's a volunteer here, including all of you attending. So thank you for your time tonight participating with us. And together we can stay on time and get out of here by 9 o'clock like we intend. Robert's Rules of Orders. It's parliamentary procedures. We use it to run our meetings. You don't need to have the details on how to do that. If you want to contribute, raise your hand. It'll help you form that into a motion. The motions are kind of simple. You just say, I move, we approve, amend, postpone, whatever it is. You, as a member of the 43rd, have the right to participate in our meetings. So if you need to ask us to slow down, explain what's happening, raise your hand and ask. Our intent here is use Robert's rules for good, not for evil. So if you are a Robert's rules superhero, please use your superhero powers for good and not for evil and for slowing down the meeting and grinding everything to a halt. And then final thing here, our land acknowledgement. Although we're all joining virtually tonight, we will start this meeting, the 43rd, acknowledging that we are on the traditional land of the First Peoples of Seattle. The Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. If you'd like to learn more about the Duwamish people and the land that you occupy and have occupied, see the map at native-land.ca. All right, with that, I will bring the meeting to order here with this agenda. Do we have any changes or amendments to this meeting agenda? All right, I have one. You'll notice in here that we've got some volunteer opportunities for somebody to represent us with the King County Democrats. I would like to add to the agenda, if that's okay, that we have a vote on that. We do have somebody who has expressed interest and would like to put themselves forward as candidate. So I'd like to add that to the agenda, and we'll add that to towards the end of the agenda, if that's okay. Unless there's any objections, we will move forward. Okay, and the April meeting minutes, unless there is objections, we will also approve the April meeting minutes. If you have any objections to either of these, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll move on. All right, not seeing any hands raised. We will consider the agenda and the April meeting minutes approved, and we'll move forward. I want to, as we have been for a few months here, welcome new members to the 43rd who have been redistricted in. As a reminder, you can find your district using the legislative district map. Let me close that. Ooh, it's a little bit small. Here is the new 43rd boundaries, just putting it up here. I'm not sure if we've done this before. You can see these boundaries here. The link is in the agenda. You can go look at that later on. If you're new, welcome. It's great to have you here. Second thing is last month, we approved initiative, we endorsed initiative 135. It's the social housing resolution, initiative for Seattle. Link here in the agenda where you can learn more. There are signature gatherers out and about now gathering signatures for that initiative. If you see one, given that we've endorsed, we would encourage you to sign the initiative, and you can contact House Our Neighbors to learn how you can help the initiative process and help House Our Neighbors get the word out and get the initiative signed. And Camille may have more on that later on in the meeting. PCO opportunity. This is filing week. I'm going to say a little bit here, and further down in the meeting, Cody will say more about PCOs, but this is filing week for candidates. This is the week if you want to be a PCO in the 43rd that you would file for doing that. We do need good PCOs in the 43rd to help us run the org, help us run King County and Washington Democrats. You can see the link here where there's more information on what it means to be a PCO, how to become a PCO, etc. It'd be great if someone can put that that link into the chat for me, so people can have it here. And Cody will be on in a bit down further in the agenda to talk more about PCOs and how you can get involved with that. And then as I was mentioning earlier, we do have a volunteer opportunity. Efren Hudnell and Charlotte Kane Amaro are stepping down from being our King County Democrat reps. So we have the opportunity. Thank you to both of them for helping out the 43rd by being our reps. So we do have an opportunity for two people to join the board as being the King County reps, and we'll have a vote for one of those positions later on in the meeting. Thank you, Cass, for putting that link in. So you can see this link here on how to be PCO. All right. And with that, let me just go quickly over what we've got in the rest of the agenda. We have Rachel Berkson from Representative Pramila Jayapal's office here. She will do a 30-minute presentation and Q&A about what's happening in the other Washington, or as we like to say, the lesser Washington. We have Sam, who's going to bring a tweak to our endorsement rules. Our endorsement meeting is next month in June. So please tell your friends, families, neighbors all about that, and encourage them to join the 43rd so they can vote next month on our endorsements. Then we have another 30-minute presentation from Andrew Hong of the Redistricting Justice for Washington about the Seattle redistricting process. Just like Washington State did, Seattle, because of population changes, is going through a redistricting process. And so Andrew will walk us through what that is, what that means, and some of the implications for that. And then we have our standard committee reports and new business, and we will get out of here by 9 o'clock. And with that, Rachel, are you here? Can you raise your hand? We will unmute you and we will give you the floor and let you share.
Hi.
There you are.
Hello,
Hi.
hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Feel free to share your screen or whatever else you might want to do, and we will help take questions when we get to that point.
Okay, excellent. Well, actually, I wasn't planning on sharing my screen, so sorry, I didn't have any PowerPoint or anything prepared.
Totally fine.
So I don't know. Oh, hello. Okay, hello. My name's Rachel Berkson. I'm Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal's Deputy Chief of Staff and District Director. I'm based here in Seattle, and so I'm in the higher Washington, the better Washington, but also am very connected to the lesser Washington, DC. And while I live in the 34th now, I grew up in the 43rd and have lived in the 43rd for a long time. So always love having an opportunity to come talk to the 43rd District Democrats. As you may have heard, the Congresswoman was tested positive for COVID this weekend and is currently quarantining in San Francisco. This is actually her second time catching COVID. So I just wanted to let folks know that she is recovering, but definitely did get sick again. So just know you can't get COVID more. She was vaccinated, double boosted, everything, and still unfortunately caught COVID. So just a little word to the wise to still be cautious out there. And she's been really busy, and it's not slowing her down. I mean, she is resting and doing everything she can remotely right now. There's so much going on. So I was just going to give a brief overview of some of the more, just like topical things that are happening right now. And then I'd love to answer any questions that people have and really make this more of a discussion, because I think that's always a lot more interesting when we're on Zoom. Paul specifically, and of course is on all of our minds, mentioned that people would be interested in talking about the leaked Supreme Court decision showing the intention to overturn Roe versus Wade. Of course, this is hugely concerning to the Congresswoman, both as a legislator, a longtime pro-choice champion and reproductive justice advocate, and also a woman who's had an abortion herself and has been really public about sharing her story. She's been out front at a lot of rallies. You've probably seen her on TV. She also led a march from the House to the Senate, where unfortunately the Senate did not pass a bill to codify Roe versus Wade. The House did their job, the Senate did not. And this really comes down to what I think the crux is of a lot of the issues, as the Congresswoman sees it now, is that we need to reform the filibuster if we're actually going to be able to make progress on a lot of different pieces of legislation. It's like, and something she says a lot is, if Republicans take the chamber, they're going to threaten to overturn the filibuster, right, and ban abortion nationwide. They've said that. So we just are really pushing folks to to really consider the importance that we urgently need, not just a Democratic majority in the Senate, but a true reproductive rights majority like we have in the House. So we're just seeing the limitations around that. Another issue I want to flag, I'm sure it's certainly on my mind, it's probably on everyone's mind, is just the gun violence epidemic in this country. What happened recently in Buffalo is horrifying from a perspective of white nationalism and also just access to guns and gun violence. And that's another issue where I think, again, we can't make progress in the Senate with the majorities we have now and the filibuster. And, the Congresswoman also, I think folks probably know she's on Judiciary Committee. And I neglected to mention she's chair of the Progressive Caucus, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, which I think folks know, and she's been leading on a whole host of different issues. I'm going to run down just a few of them, and we can talk about the ones that people are most interested in. Of course, she's pushing on just getting back to judiciary and the judicial issue. She recently, I think just this last week, introduced a bill on judicial ethics, and this wraps into January 6th. I know I spoke with a member earlier, a member of the 43rd earlier, who I know had heard her speak, because again, this is another issue that's personal for her. She felt, like her life was in danger on January 6th. It's been just a stain on our democracy. And, we really want, she sees this as a really big issue. Of course, for our democracy and our electoral system, our country needs to restore accountability and faith in the Department of Justice. Just needs to move quicker so it doesn't run up against the next election. And then this becomes seen as a political move when this is something that needs to happen. And I believe a member is going to talk about some of the watch parties that are happening that folks can see of the hearings of the January 6th commission. She's not on that, but is out there as much as she can, the Congresswoman, speaking about this issue. Other pieces she's working on, of course, are access to healthcare. And as the lead sponsor of the Medicare for All Act, pushing on that, and also pushing against the privatization of Medicare in various different ways, and pushing overall for better access to healthcare. One of her key bills, which is the South Asian Heart Health Bill, is moving forward as we speak. So that's exciting and would really shed a light on an issue of folks in the South Asian community having heart health issues at a higher rate than the rest of the population. So she's looking at the big picture and the big broad brushstrokes issues, and also, the more nitty gritty issues. Of course, she's continuing to push on immigration, and the House has passed the Treatment Promise Act, and which, can protect streamers, TPS holders, and she's creating a roadmap to citizenship as well, by passing the No Ban Act. She has an Access to Counsel Act to protect civil rights and civil liberties. So I'm just giving a really brief overview on issues because I also want to talk about the elections that are happening, that are coming up. The Congresswoman's focused both on electing progressives across the country, and also keeping the House majority, because that's something that I know everyone's worried about. She believes we can hold on to it. She's been doing a lot of aggressive work, both in the field and fundraising, to help candidates all across the country. And she also knows we need more progressives. There are elections tonight. I don't know if people are tracking them. I'm just going to look at my phone here. Because I was looking at the results earlier. The Congresswoman has endorsed several progressive House candidates. 4 of them are for the primaries are tonight. 2 in North Carolina. Unfortunately, the 2 people that she had endorsed there, Erica Smith and Nida Alam, did not make it through the primaries, although we're hopeful for Summer Lee in Pennsylvania, and we're still waiting to hear what happens in Oregon's 6th district, where she endorsed Andrea Salinas. So we may or may not know the results of these races tonight, but we're tracking those closely, and she has endorsed both the slate of progressives and just, is really going to be focusing on holding the House and supporting Kim Schreier here in our state as well. So I'm going to stop there because I would love to just, hear what questions people have and answer any questions, and have a good conversation.
All right. Thank you very much for that quick overview. Let's see. First, we'll go to Austin.
Hi, thank you for being here, and definitely wishing the Congresswoman a speedy recovery. I'm a U.S. Army veteran, and I am working with a family of Afghan refugees who are close relatives of American citizens living here in Washington. I've been in touch with your office, and your office has told me that you can't help them, but both Congress and the Biden administration can help refugees, and we've seen that with the hundreds of Ukrainian refugees at the Mexican border who received humanitarian parole in as little as 8 hours, while at least 85% of Afghan humanitarian parole applications have been denied. And Representative Jayapal could be writing op-eds, she could be holding press conferences, she could be pushing for hearings, she could be speaking on the House floor about this issue, she could be introducing legislation, she could be arranging meetings between these Washington families and high-ranking State Department and DHS officials. She could be coordinating with the rest of the Washington Congressional delegation to lobby for changes. And I just, these families and I, we just haven't seen that. And I'm just curious what, if anything, your office plans to do to advocate for these folks.
Yeah, and I know we have talked with you, Austin. I recognize your name, and we haven't had the chance to speak about the specific cases you're talking about. The Congresswoman has been pushing hard and on legislation, on various letters, and working with folks in the community here to push as hard as she can to get folks in. It is a really tricky situation, to your point, and I think that you and I should offline to find a time to talk about the specific folks that I know you're working with, and I'd love to hear more of those ideas. But she has been an advocate and does continue to advocate on behalf of the Afghani refugees who are trying to come into the country.
Thank you. From chat, I'll just read this out. You mentioned eliminating the filibuster to codify Roe versus Wade. Even if we did that, we would still need 50 Democrat votes to pass a bill legalizing abortion. Do those votes exist?
In the Senate?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good question. I think if we were to eliminate the filibuster, we could see, because I do think that, we have, if you look at some of the more moderate women Republicans, I think it's certainly possible. And I think I think there is a belief that there would be a path to get there.
Right. Thank you. Leroy.
Hi, yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, great. So first of all, thank you for the work that you and the Congresswoman are doing. I do appreciate it. I do want to go back to the Wayback Machine to 2018. So I've been calling the Congresswoman's office several times asking, when is the Judiciary Committee going to get the unredacted version of the Mueller report. As someone who read that report as soon as it came out, took me 15 hours over 3 days to read it. Not only do I want to read the unredacted, but more importantly, a equal branch of government asked Bill Barr's office for that report and they didn't send it. So whether I get to read the unredacted or not, I think it's important that Congress gets that because they asked for it. And I haven't gotten an answer from the Congresswoman's office on what we are doing to get that, so they can get that report.
It's a good question. I know the Congresswoman read, I have to confess, I did not read the whole thing, so good for you. And the Congresswoman obviously has and read it immediately too, and has been pushing on that. To be honest, I don't know where things are at with that now, but Leroy, I'd be happy to, I'm gonna put my email in the chat for everybody so that we can be in touch after this meeting, because I'm honestly not sure exactly what's happening with getting the unredacted Mueller report. So I just, hopefully everyone got my email there, and you're more than welcome to email me so I can talk with my colleagues and give you an update on that.
Yeah, I see it there. All right, next, Camille.
Hi, yeah, thanks so much for being here. Also just wanted to say thank you. I know that folks from your constituent services helped my partner's visa process speed up last year, and he's here now. So really appreciate that effort from your office. I had a kind of two-parted question. Yesterday, I don't know what day of the week it is, I think it was yesterday, Biden released his plan on housing, and as someone that's worked a lot in the housing space, I was very appreciative to see that there is going to be such a huge investment into affordable housing going forward. But I did notice that the vast majority of the investment that he's proposing is into the low-income housing tax credit, and is also proposing to sell off a large number of current public housing that exists. And so I wanted to know that the first part of my question is what the Congresswoman, I know that she's sick and this just came out yesterday, so I don't know if she's had a chance to look at it, but if you all had talked at all about the issue with this housing proposal that he has proposed.
We haven't yet, and I'm so glad you brought it up. I'd love for us to schedule a time to get your views on it. This is a huge issue. Of course, everyone here knows this. For the district, for the Congresswoman, she has a housing is a human right bill. We haven't had a chance to discuss internally as a team, just with everything that's been going on with her health, this proposal, but I'd love to get your thoughts and connect you with our folks who are working on housing, so we could kind of come up with a plan for we'd love to be informed by the opinion of experts here in the district, and kind of think about what her response is and what the response is of the Congressional Progressive Caucus as well, because it's a key issue for the caucus.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great. And then that kind of leads to my second part of the question that I have. So on a more local level with housing, I also am a representative from the Campaign for Initiative 135 for the Social Housing Initiative, and we would really love to know if the Congresswoman would be willing to endorse, or how we can get into contact with you all to get that endorsement.
That's great. She recently saw Nicole Macri, and we were talking with her. Is Nicole? I don't know if Nicole's here. We were talking with her about it, and I need to follow up with her to have an overall briefing for our team on it. But they started that conversation. I know she's super interested in learning more. I can't commit now because we just haven't had enough time to review the proposal. But I think she was super interested in it as an idea and just wants to look into it more. So if it sounds right, my plan was to follow up with Nicole Macri, and maybe she could put me in touch with the right people if she's not the right person.
Yeah, Nicole Macri is great. She has been in contact with me a little bit about that conversation, and I'm also, as one of the folks on the steering committee for the initiative, I'm happy to connect as well with your office to talk about that if it's something that you would be interested in.
Definitely, absolutely. And I just put my campaign email in here. I listed my official House email for matters like this on endorsements and other pieces. My campaign email would be better that I just listed there. And also Lauren Lalonde, who's the Congresswoman's campaign manager, is also on here too. So she's another great contact as well. But I'm happy to also, we'll make sure to be in touch on these pieces. But thanks for raising that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And Frank Chop is on the call, I'm seeing here as well. And he's, as you're probably aware, a huge affordable housing advocate and would be a good resource for Representative Jayapal to talk to as well. So,
and I know Representative Chop, we're trying to coordinate a meeting that got really interrupted by the Congresswoman's COVID diagnosis. We're going to try to do something early next week. So we're figuring that out. And hopefully, I know there were a number of important items on the agenda there. We'll add this to the list.
Okay, just a comment from chat here from Maria Mitchell. Please tell Pramila that I am impressed. I doubted her leadership because she has been doing an absolutely stand-up job with her staff and supporters. I would love to see a push for more African Americans around here, but I am impressed. Are there other questions for Director Berkson? You can put them in the
please
chat.
Don't call me that, but well, I would love to, stay in touch. You have my email. I just wanted to say also, I think it was Camille who mentioned our constituent services team. We have returned over $5 million back to the district. We'd love to work with people on anything you need to navigate the federal government, whether that's issues with Social Security, issues with Medicare, issues with your visas, passports. Our team is really awesome and really excited to help. So I loved hearing that we were able to help her partner.
Right, thanks.
Lonnie, it looks like Lonnie has a question. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Rachel. I am new to the 43rd. I've been very active in 37th for the past 31 years. Then I got redistricted out. I'm the author of a book titled The Anatomy of Organized Hate. And my question has to do with what the Congresswoman is doing to either draft or propose legislation to stop the wrong crimes in the US. More specifically, what she is doing to address the rise of hate crimes.
That's an excellent question, Lonnie, and it's something that the Congresswoman just cares deeply about. At one point when you were describing what your book was about, you cut out for a second, but I think it was just on the rise of hate crimes. Was it anything more specific than that, or just rise of hate? Okay.
The book is stories of former white supremacists.
Oh, yeah.
And how they got into the movement, what they did, and more importantly, how they got out. And it's an excellent way to recognize how organized hate works. I would love to meet with you or the Congresswoman. I know her personally from Seattle, to talk about some ideas that I have. But I'm more interested to know what's happening in Congress, particularly the House.
Yeah, that's a great, I'm gonna have to, this is an issue that is incredibly important to the Congresswoman and something that I know that she has, is incredibly concerned about. We brought together conversations on the issue, working with Anila Afzali, working with folks from the Western State Center. And we would love, on specific legislation, it's not coming to mind for me now, so I could look that up. I'm happy to share that with Paul and the rest of the team. I know she's jumped on anything she can do. I think a lot of this is about the conversation, is about taking the white supremacy movement very seriously and talking about how we see it now with everything that's happening, obviously with the Republican Party, frankly, and with Trump and all these different pieces, with the insurrection, and these different campaigns are connected, and, it's not something that's going away, it's just growing. So I'm happy to, send around what she's been doing specifically, in terms of legislation and hearings. She's been doing a lot. But I would also love to, have a conversation with you, Lonnie, to talk a little bit more about that.
I'll send you my contact info.
Great. And mine is in the chat here. So
Yeah,
please do.
Thank you.
Let's see, quickly from the chat here, Linda Clifton says, please thank the Congresswoman for co-sponsoring HR 350 on this topic. And then a question, I'm not sure who it's from. Have we missed the window for passing climate legislation before the midterms?
Absolutely not. No, no, no. Push, 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 push your representatives. There's nothing more. I don't know. It's hard to say there's nothing more urgent. Everything's urgent. This is another one of those urgent topics that we think we can make progress on. There is time, right? They are going back into session. They will be in session in June and July and somewhat in the fall, but the time to push is right now. So that's a great question. It's a tricky issue, but like it's an area where we should be able to get something done. But Congress can be, just so frustrating in that regard. But do keep on pushing. The Congresswoman did just introduce another bill, the Climate Resiliency Act, but she wants to push forward any bill that we have that's, a realistic chance of passing.
Thanks. And then Will.
Yes. So my question is actually in relation to climate change. Are there any specific proposals we'll be doing about trying to get more electric heat pumps for those of us who happen to live in the half of America that has renewable powered electricity?
I'm so glad you brought that up. This was actually a community project that she funded in the district to help expand on a program in Seattle that was getting more electric heat pumps. It's expensive, so it's a small scale program. I would love to think about, I don't know if there's federal legislation around it, but I know it's a program that the Congresswoman's been thoroughly briefed on and is super interested in. And we were able to help put some of her, what was formerly known as earmarks, currently community funded project funding into for this last fiscal year. So we were able to help expand that program and, would love to think about what's possible on the federal level to expand that.
Great. Hopefully that will include townhouses and condos, not just single family homes.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. So I'd have to check on that.
Thank you.
Why?
Other questions? Raise your hand or type it in the chat if you would rather do that. Linda. Oh, sorry, I have to hit the unmute for you. There you go, Linda.
So my question is, have we sort of forgotten that COVID's still happening? Or is there legislation going on to continue vaccination and research and supplies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
I mean, I'll say the Congresswoman certainly hasn't forgotten because she has COVID right now. And, I think a number of members of Congress do. In terms of, continuing the work and the funding, I totally understand your question because it feels like there's such an urgency to get back to business as usual, but we need to continue on sort of support and funding on all the COVID policies to continue with the research and testing, and that's certainly something that the federal government is continuing to initiate amidst everything else. I don't know that there's any new legislation around that, but I can look into it, but it's certainly something that, I think a lot of legislators still see urgency around on a personal level. And of course, we need to continue to push forward with, with the vaccination education, with the funding and the resources and all the impacts.
And probably with research on improved vaccines at this point.
Yeah, I'm looking at Will's point. Yeah, well, I'll look into that and I can get back to folks on exactly kind of where things stand at the federal level and how the resources, at this point, a lot of it is being distributed locally at the county and city level.
Thank you.
And I'll Let's see. Oh, let me read out what Will put in here. Given the cutting of COVID vaccination booster funding in half and the literal doubling of the COVID infections in King County over the last 2 weeks, we need action, especially as new variants are only 80% protected against. Yes. And I'll put the link in chat, but this week the federal government did just release another round of free rapid COVID tests. So you can order those. And like I said, I'll put the link in here in just a minute. And then we have a comment here from Boget. Please thank the Congresswoman for raising awareness about the crucial work of the Select Committee on January 6th and for urging us to watch the hearings of this committee starting June 9th as a first step towards holding the perpetrators accountable, perpetrators accountable, and for warning that without accountability, another coup will happen. And then let me read what Amy says. To add to what Linda is saying, I'm very much hoping we can direct more funding to updating the vaccines. 42% of hospitalizations are folks who are vaccinated, in part because they're not covering the latest strains. Yes. As you can see, the district is pretty concerned about COVID and the impact of COVID.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing we were learning with the Congresswoman just getting COVID, a lot of the boosters are there to minimize the symptoms and they're not really protecting folks. They are helping somewhat with hospitalization, but I'm happy to talk more to folks and kind of look into where things are at now and how we can report more. And I'll check in with and make sure to report back to the Congresswoman too, that this is, such a key concern, which I think she'll appreciate as well, knowing that this is something that her constituents are tracking so closely.
Thank you. And we have time for one last question. Is there one last question from anyone in attendance? All right, not seeing anything in chat, no hand raised. Linda puts in chat, and we hope she's fully recovered soon. Yes, we do hope that she gets fully recovered very soon so she can get back to fighting for progressive values in Washington. And thank you very much, Rachel, for your time tonight, bringing the message from Representative Jayapal and taking questions.
Thank you all. I look forward to hearing from everybody in terms of all the follow-up questions. Really appreciate the great questions and conversation.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, next up in our agenda, we've got Sam McVitie, who is going to talk through some tweaks to the endorsement process. And let me share my screen so we can work through that. All right.
Great. And while you're setting that up, just a quick reminder that endorsements will be our next general meeting. So if you get questions from candidates, there is information on the website that has a form they can fill out where they can submit their questionnaire and make sure that we have their contact information. And we're looking forward to, I think we already have a number of candidates for US Senate. So that will be interesting to talk to them. So if you have any questions, please email elections@43rd and happy to answer those. So the endorsement rules for 2022 should look really familiar. We're just looking at very minor changes. So all but one is basically housekeeping. The first one here under 2D is basically saying the rules cannot be suspended once they're adopted. So there's sort of no Robert's Rules shenanigans, which is in line with the way we want to conduct our meetings. Then the next couple of changes are just adding explicit provisions for virtual meetings because those weren't in the rules before. And we are, as Linda put it, we are still in COVID. And so we want to recognize that and recognize that we have virtual ballots. So there are a couple changes like that. And then the substantive change here is to recognize that we had this previous debates clause that ended up never actually being used. We proposed it a number of times and then it ended up getting voted down. So it just sort of wasted meeting time. So instead, we are proposing to replace that with a rebuttals section where the original intent of the debates was to basically allow candidates to respond to outright falsehoods. And so here we're adding a provision where the chair may recognize a candidate or member for up to 30 additional seconds to rebut a specific negative statement or ad hominem attack directed against the named candidate. So this is meant to be used very narrowly when there's sort of an outright falsehood or something like that. So I would entertain a motion to adopt these rules, or if there are any questions, happy to field those.
I move to adopt these rules.
We have a second moved from Will.
Thank you. Linda, do you have a question or? Okay. Let's see. Come on, Zoom. There you go. You're unmuted now.
So these look like good changes, but I'm curious as to why we're going to limit that 30 seconds only to very specific subject matter.
Sure. So this is responding to the way the membership reacted to the previous debates provision, where whenever somebody proposed it, the membership voted it down, and we just spent a bunch of time wasted on parliamentary procedure. So we thought this was sort of a more narrow thing to try out. And if we end up using it a bunch, I think we'd be happy to expand this. But this was just sort of recognizing like it's already a late meeting usually, and we don't want to spend, it was like 5-10 minutes, which was doing basically a no-op.
So I would suggest that perhaps you're going to now spend 5 or 10 minutes arguing on whether it meets the narrow criteria. I would say just let people make a 30-second statement, you'll save time. But
I think I recognize, I hope that the membership respects the authority of our chair in making that determination.
okay.
Are there other questions about these proposed rule changes? Any other questions? All right, we have a motion to adopt these rule changes. I will ask if there's any objections to adopting these by unanimous consent. Annabelle. Any objections to adopting these rule changes by unanimous consent? Linda, screenshot that please for us so that you can, if you have to tell us I told you so, you got the proof. All right, last ask. Any objections to adopting these rule changes by unanimous consent? And the link to the doc is in the chat if you weren't able to follow along as I slowly scrolled through. Okay. Seeing no objections, the 43rd will have adopted this by unanimous consent. Thank you very much, Sam, for pulling us together. And we will get these rule changes posted and updated on our website.
Great. Thank you. Looking forward to having a great endorsements meeting in a month.
Yes. And again, let me plug to everybody. Please tell your friends, your neighbors, your family members, join the 43rd so that they can vote on endorsements next month. They need to join the 43rd 10 days prior, which to be safe is the, let me pull up the calendar. That would be 1, 2, 3. Our endorsement meeting is on June 21st, Tuesday. And so they should join by June the 11th. It's a Saturday. Thank you. Thanks, Sam. All right, moving on now. We have Andrew Hong here of the Redistricting Justice for Washington, who will talk with us about Seattle redistricting. We got the link in the agenda here to the Redistricting Justice Washington website. You can click through that and look at that as well. And we will, Andrew, can you raise your hand? So we can find you. Is Andrew here? Do we have Andrew?
Yeah, no Paul, no one named Andrew.
No Andrew. Okay. We will see if he comes in a little bit. Otherwise, we will move forward. All right. Next up, my apologies for that, everyone. Next up in our agenda is voting for replacement King County Democrat rep. So as I noted earlier, we are. Oh, okay. Thanks. Kelsey says that Andrew was planning on being here at 8, so he's not here yet. This actually works out well. We'll work through the voting for the King County Democrat rep, and then Andrew hopefully will be here in time for that. So as I mentioned earlier, we are losing both of our King County Democrat reps, Efren and Charlotte. And so we are in the need for new ones. The King County Democrat rep from the 43rd represents us at the King County Democrat meetings for the monthly meeting that they have for endorsements and for other voting matters. Is there anyone who is interested in nominating themselves for the position? You can raise your hand. And we have Sophia raising her hand physically. Let me unmute you. So we have Sophia. Okay. Do you want to spend a couple minutes to tell us about yourself, Sophia?
Yeah, hi, my name is Sophia Lee, and I think a lot of you know me by now. I have lived in the 43rd my entire time in Seattle, which is around 8 years at this point. I have been heavily involved in community work, ranging from being the board chair of Gender Justice League, trans civil and human rights organization, and also I spent time on the Seattle Women's Commission. I feel like I have done a lot of work with the 43rd District Democrats in the past, and I feel like my values and ethics align very well with the rest of the district also. And I would love to be able to bring our voices to up to the county level. That's all. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Are there any other candidates for this position? Okay, seeing no other hands raised, nothing in chat, I would recommend that we vote. We'll do as we have been. I will ask if there's any objections to us electing Sophia Lee as our King County Democrats rep from the 43rd by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Raise your hand, put something in chat if there are any objections. Last opportunity. All right, seeing no objections. Congratulations, Sophia. You're a new King County Democrat rep. Looking forward to working with you and you working with the rest of the board and the membership to represent us at King County. Okay, thank you. In just to keep us moving forward here, Oh, sorry, hold on. How do it won't let me stop spotlighting Sophia. I'm sorry. Zoom is still a mystery to me. Oh, Andrew is here now. Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on with Andrew then. We won't go on to something else. All right, so we have Andrew Hong from Redistricting Justice for Washington, gave the whole spiel earlier. And let me spotlight Andrew. He's got a presentation, and he will also be able to take questions from all of us about Seattle redistricting. So take it away, Andrew. Feel free to share your screen if you can.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Paul. And thank you everyone here at the 43rd LD for inviting me here to speak as well, alongside my colleague, Katie Stoltz. Sorry, FYI, I don't think I got to notify y'all, but my colleague, Katie Stoltz, who's also part of the Redistricting Justice for Seattle Coalition, is also here and will be co-presenting with me. So yeah, first we'll start with intros. My name is Andrew. I use he, him pronouns. Just south of y'all in the 37th LD, but I'm a lifelong resident and organizer here in South Seattle, and I help coordinate the Redistricting Justice for Washington Coalition, which is a statewide coalition last year that we worked to ensure fair representation for communities, and especially communities of color statewide in the state legislative district redistricting, as well as congressional redistricting. And this year we're shifting our focus to local level redistricting, including Seattle City Council. And so me and Katie are here to help educate Seattleites on City Council redistricting and share some of our maps and hopefully get some good feedback from y'all. I'll pass it off to Katie to introduce yourself. Thanks, y'all. Katie, are you here?
Got it. I couldn't unmute myself, so no worries. I definitely understand Zoom facilitation. Thank you all so much for having Andrew and I tonight. My name is Katie Stoltz. I'm also on the steering committee for the Redistricting Justice for Washington, the statewide coalition, really now focusing on the local efforts with the Redistricting Justice for Seattle coalition. I'm also the senior political manager at Win-Win Action as well, and so have been really working on this redistricting work over the last feels like 3 years. And so very excited to really deep dive into the Seattle process. I have lived up in the 46 for the last few years, but also a King County resident my whole life. I grew up in South King County. And so excited to be here to really talk about what it's really the opportunity for Seattle residents to actually have a voice in the Seattle process for the first time since the new maps and the districts have been created. So I can kick us off, Andrew. I don't know if you want to share screen and then we can dive into this. So Paul had asked us to really provide an overview of really what the Seattle redistricting process is. Right now there are many things happening. We have the filing deadline coming up very, very soon, as well as it feels like we just ended the statewide process. And so I'm just going to give a quick overview of really some of the key components of our coalition, some of the key components of the actual Seattle process. And then I'm really going to make sure we have enough time for Andrew to actually deep dive into some of our map proposals. So if there's any piece of this that I don't get to touch on too much, we'll make sure that the slide deck goes out and you can look at it further. So if you want to go next, Andrew. So currently the Redistricting Justice for Seattle Coalition is really made up of community-based organizations, advocacy groups, community members, nonprofit organizations. We're also growing. And so this is really our core sort of steering group currently right now, but also looking to sort of grow the coalition as the hearings begin and more. So if anyone is interested in really joining and really staying a part of the effort to really call for a equitable and transparent process, we welcome you. Our coalition values, so really just to show you sort of what the focus of the coalition is really ensuring transparency of the data and process, calling for an equitable community input and engagement, keeping communities of interest together. And specifically, our core focus is prioritizing people and communities over incumbents to protect the political power of people of color, working class people, renters, and other marginalized populations. So really just a quick, if you are interested in joining us, the first and foremost is please sign up to testify at an upcoming hearing. We'll put this in the chat. This week we have District 2, which represents most of South Seattle, Thursday, May 19th from 5:30 to 7:30. There's an option to join in person at El Centro, or you can join virtually for this Thursday. I also have a list of all of the upcoming hearings, so look for that further. But really, if you are interested in joining, that's one of the best ways is to join to testify. And we have some testimonies, sort of like training to really, if folks are testifying for the first time and really interested in getting more involved. We'll make sure we share all of these links, and Andrew's quickly sharing them in the chat and afterward. So now we'll just deep dive into really what is the Seattle redistricting process. So in 2013, the voters approved Charter Amendment 19, really to sort of develop these districts for the first time. The 2015 election was the first election conducted with these districts. And so this is actually the first time that voters will actually be able to have really a voice in the redistricting process. This is also the first time Seattle will essentially be going through this city-based redistricting process. So as you can see here are the current lines for folks that are really unfamiliar. This is the current makeup of the Seattle district lines. There are 7 districts, and then there are 2 at-large Seattle council members.
And I just want to jump in really quickly. If folks are wondering about the different color shadings of the maps, the darker districts are districts that are currently have too many people, proportional to like what an perfectly equal sized city council districts should be at. So this is kind of a result of population grows at different rates across the city. And so those that have, or council districts that are currently darker in this map will have to shrink in this 2022 redistricting process, and districts that are lighter color will have to expand because there's not enough people in those districts right now. Yeah, thanks for letting me jump in.
Yeah, for sure. So this is just the just quick overview of the makeup of the current Seattle Redistricting Commission. And so as you can tell, there's some folks appointed by city council, some appointed by the former mayor, and then some appointed by the Redistricting Commission. So it's a 5-person commission. They meet every week, Tuesdays at noon. And yeah, next. So just a really short snapshot of the timeline. This is a very basic timeline. If you are interested in diving in deeper, you are welcome to check the links. But really just to give a focus of or an idea of really when the final deadline. So the final deadline is November 8th. There's the October 15th. I'll go backwards. October 15th is the deadline for comments. So that'll be essentially the final deadline for comments on the final map. September is when the commission is hoping to have their draft final map really submitted to the public for feedback. I think it's either September or even earlier. And then really this summer, between now May and July, it's going to be a really focus on public hearings. So they're going to be hosting about, I believe, 2 public hearings a month. And the goal is to host 1 public hearing per district. And then what they've been doing since the, or over the spring is really they've been holding educational listening sessions. So some of the content I'll show you here is really pulled from the educational content that the Seattle Commission has been providing. And really it's just to be able to educate the public on what redistricting is and how to get involved. Here is the list of all of the upcoming commission public hearings. So if you're interested in joining, they're all sort of coming up again pretty soon, with, again, the first one was on Sunday and the next one is this Thursday for District 2. So if there's a specific district you're interested in, go ahead and make sure to click those links and register. You do have to register ahead of time, but they will have in-person and online options.
And I just wanted to plug really quickly in the chat. Paul's also dropping the links to for those forms. If you sign to testify with Rjs, we'll provide you some testimony support templates, also talking points that if your values align with our coalition, we'll be providing district-based talking points that reflect our values that you can use. So we invite you to sign to testify at the official commission site, which is instructions will be on our own sign up link, and also sign up with our Rjs sign up link to get those resources. Thanks.
Great. So this is just a quick overview of really what the requirements are for the new districts. So this is pulled directly from the city. So the new districts, you sort of to go over an overview of really what are the legal requirements for the commission. So they have to be compact, contiguous, not gerrymandered, have approximately the same population, follow the existing district boundaries as much as possible, recognizing waterways and geographic boundaries, and then recognizing communities and neighborhoods. Really for this process, based off of the census, the number of the final population per district is 105,288. And then the districts are 1, 2, 5, and 6 must expand, similar to what Andrew had mentioned earlier. And then districts 3, 4, and 7 must contract. So this was, I think, just an image that was provided to sort of show what those numbers are and sort of what the changes are that are going to have to be made. Yeah. So then just a quick overview, really, what are communities of interest and sort of how that's defined. So there are actually, there's different definitions really of sort of what a community of interest is. This is specifically pulled from, again, the city's presentation. I think one important thing to note is that they've noted is that race and ethnicity can play a role in defining a community of interest, but cannot be used as the sole definition. So really residents may have a shared ancestry, history, or language, but really it's focusing in on some of the examples below listed here. And I just to keep us moving, but folks can sort of dive deeper into this afterward. So great, I'll hand it off now to Andrew. So Andrew is going to talk through a couple of map proposals that were have really been developed by the Redistricting Justice for Seattle Coalition based off of those priorities that we listed earlier in the presentation. And so would love feedback from everyone. I think Andrew did also, I think link, or I can make sure while you're giving your presentation, I'll link the link for feedback. We would love sort of participation and input in this process. So if folks are interested, we'll share that link out for feedback. So feel free to open it up and fill out while Andrew is presenting. But I hope that gave a bit of an overview, and you're all experts at redistricting now. And I'll hand it off to Andrew.
Great.
Andrew, before you start, are there any questions that anyone has around the redistricting process or the criteria, et cetera? Raise your hand if you do. Will, let's see.
Yes. So if the South Seattle district, I can't remember which number that is, expands directly to the north into the downtown core, wouldn't that permit the millionaires and billionaires who live there to effectively gain control of that entire thing by funding their own campaign to take it over?
Potentially, with that type of question, those questions right there kind of highlight why redistricting is so consequential and so important. And so as a coalition, and also as a person in the South Seattle district too, that's a question that I'm thinking about, and I would like to see maps that, make sure that the South End neighbors and, myself as a South End voter have a city council member that reflects our interests, not the interests of folks downtown, which aren't the majority of District 2. So yeah, I think, thank you for that question. The answer is, potentially yes. And it really highlights why it's so important to get redistricting right so that we have fair representation for communities, especially our group is prioritizing marginalized communities, people of color, working class people, renters, young people in this process. Yeah, Camille?
Yeah, I wanted to know, you might have said this and I apologize if you did, but is there a district or districts that you're more concerned about being inequitably redistricted, like specific districts that would be more like the most helpful to have folks advocating at?
Yeah, I would say that all 7 districts are, important. I think that our coalition, more of our members represent kind of districts 2 and 3, and those are kind of the base of, I think, a lot of people of communities of color in Seattle and working class communities, but there are also renters that heavily populate districts 6 and 7 and 4 as well. And so I don't think there's any district that is more important than others. We just really want you to testify at the districts that you personally believe are interested in. And I think once we get into these map proposals, you'll kind of see the lay of the land a lot better than what I could describe here verbally of what are the districts at play and what are the issues that are going to come up. Yeah.
And Annabelle.
So I didn't get a lot of time to look at what was on that slide, went by pretty fast, but it looked like a lot of the criteria for recognizing a community of interest revolved around sort of community organization, political advocacy, that sort of thing. Is there a risk there that is biasing towards wealthier communities that have more time and resources that they can put into that kind of organization? Is that a concern you're seeing? Is that something that is potentially addressable through feedback, or has the ship sailed on that particular aspect of this?
I think the definition of communities of interest is intentionally flexible, and you're correct that, in this process and just any process and, this flawed democracy that we're in, that's, very influenced by big money, that those with power, money, and therefore time tend to have an oversized influence on political processes. So that's why it's so important that, our RGS coalition is doing this work, and we really hope that y'all join us and sign up to get emails to plug into the action items that we're taking to make sure that marginalized communities are heard and centered in this process. Yeah.
And I'll just add, I think, similar to what Andrew said, I think that is such a phenomenal question. I think also to bring to the commissioners to really, I think, push them on what their definition of communities of interest is. We've been really trying to push to try to get as much of a sense of from the commissioners, especially because this is a nonpartisan process, really like, what are their values? Like, what do they have specific communities of interest that they're interested in? Or really, are they just truly about that make equal population in the districts? And so I think that's definitely a great point to lift up. And as Andrew said, I think that it is, there is an opportunity to organize around this and to make sure sort of you're bringing your community of interest, or sort of defining that actually for the commissioners.
And Catherine.
Hi. Like Lonnie, I'm new to the 43rd, so hi, but I've been kind of involved in the redistricting stuff after the horrific job that the state did to the central area in particular. So I love you all, love my Capitol Hill neighbors, but the fact they took historic, recognized cultural anchors from the central area and split them out of the 37th was horrific. And it wasn't even up on the agenda before the after midnight scramble. So we were sort of slapped in the face. So there's a lot of us in the central area, including members in the 37th, who are not going to tolerate the central area being split up, particularly because, like, within the last 5 years, we finally got our design review board boundaries hashed out. So that means we have this identity of community, and it includes those wealthy areas as well along the lakes. They're not the enemy. People have been working on these issues for a long time. So failed to prevent displacement, but that was because of people moving in. But anyway, I'll stop there. But I do think that communities that have been split up previously, like Yesler Terrace, Georgetown, Wallingford, have serious interest in Eastlake, have serious interest in bringing themselves back together. So it is geographical. It also is recognizing if we have centers of Latino culture, if you have a cluster where you have a center of culture, we really want to be able to maintain that coherence, whatever district we are in. So I'd say Capitol Hill, Eastlake is very upset. Where do you guys end? You might want to think about that. Stuff like that. And that mapping tool is really cool. You might want to drill into census data a little bit more for your own satisfaction. But I can't only speak for the central area because that's where I live. But I did have some ideas. I had a map I'm sharing, and it's a pretty wild map, but it did try to keep Yesler Terrace. I think I missed the lower boundary, and the CID and Pioneer Square together. But
Hi, Catherine. It looks like Andrew's trying to address some of your comments.
Sorry. Anyway, so that is worth really thinking about where you live and where's your communities, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. I invite you to sign up for the RGS campaign so we can make sure we can plug you into all mapping session events to get those, nitty-gritty specifics around District 3 that are super important. But yeah, for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to the maps and yeah, and then we'll get to see a lot of these issues that y'all are bringing up more visually with these map proposals. And before I get on that, I just want to highlight this feedback form I posted in the chat, and I'll do it again right now. As I go through these maps, I would love it if y'all could kind of like have this feedback form on another page, kind of filling out as you look at the maps, because as we present these maps, we really want to get feedback. These are our own, coalition's draft maps. They're not final. And so as y'all, residents of the 43rd LD and districts 4 and 6, or 3 and 4 and 7, we'd really appreciate any, pointers and community knowledge that y'all have that we might be missing in our initial map proposals. Cool. And thanks for dropping that map in the chat. I'll make sure to save that. Cool. So since we're kind of tight on time, I'll be able to go through all of our map proposals, but I want to get to hopefully 3 that I think that the 43rd LD has specific interest in. So this first one is map B. Just kind of to help folks orient themselves to this slide. On the left-hand side, you see the current city council districts that have been used in the past few elections. And on the right-hand side, here is our map B proposal. And then on the chart below, you see a bunch of statistics. On the kind of the left side of the table, you'll see the current city council district breakdown. And on the right side, it's our B proposal, a district breakdown by district. The first row is API, which stands for Asian Pacific Islander. Second row is African American. Third row is Latinos. Fourth row is Native Americans. The fifth row is the total number of people of color by population. And then this last row is total people of color by citizen voting age population. And citizen voting age population is a fancy way of saying eligible voters. And I think that, despite POC being kind of the general statistic that we look at when we're redistricting, I think our coalition really values looking at the POC citizen voting age population statistic, because that shows us who are the eligible voters in a district, and those are the ones who are going to be ending up electing the council members. Cool. So now that that's out of the way, map B, the areas I would love for y'all to really kind of focus in on is, of course, District 3 and 4, and that boundary here. So kind of the story behind this line, or the boundary between 3 and 4 that was drawn here, is that District 7 grew an enormous amount in the past 10 years. And so District 7 has to shrink, and kind of an effect of that is that the north end districts 4, 5, and 6 need to expand further south of Lake Union and the Cut. And so here is one proposal of how to do that, how to move the north end districts further into the south end. And in this map, this map's answer is to make District 4 go further into Madison Park and Broadmoor. So that kind of is the effect of this map. And I'd love folks to think about, as I go through the 3 different map proposals I'm going to show, like what makes most sense in terms of cutting districts. It will be either 4 or 6 further down south. Currently, the avenue it does it in is moving District 4 into East Lake. This map kind of does the opposite or kind of flips it by moving District 4 to the northeastern part of District 3 into Madison Park and Broadmoor. This map highlights where people of color live across the city. And so one thing I wanted to highlight with y'all is what are the demographic shifts that are affecting city council districts this year? Here is where people of color live, of course, concentrated in the south end of Seattle. This shows the same information. This shows the areas in the city and what is the largest racial group in each precinct of the city. So in the 43rd LD, it's mostly white voters with some Asian American and 1 or 2 Black precincts that are a majority. But this map is kind of the really one I want to focus on in terms of what are the demographic shifts that's affecting redistricting this year, especially looking at districts 2 and 3. This map shows the change in people of color from 2010 to 2020. So the lighter color shades mean that those areas lost people of color proportionally to white residents, and the darker color pink shows that those areas where it got increasingly diverse, more people of color moved to. So it's kind of a contrast between these 2 maps, where in the north end of Seattle, there are much more white people. However, those areas are getting more diverse, while districts 2 and parts of 3 are getting less diverse, despite being where most of the people of color live in the city. This area shows the median household income by census block. And so in the southern half and also near Northgate, that's where more working class communities live. And then this map shows the percentage of renters. So one thing that the decision to move District 4 down into the Madison Park Broadmoor area does is, along with kind of the median income of District 3, the renter population increased in District 3 from about 65% renters to 73% renters. And then also the median income of District 3 decreased while the median income of District 4 increased. And then here shows the population of young people under 35 years old. Darker areas mean that there are more young people there. And the youth population of District 3 increased from 43 to 49%, while in District 4, it went from 48% young people, which is, from UW's influence, the youngest district in the city, that went down to 42% young people, as Madison Park tends to be less young people. Cool. So that kind of summarizes map B. As we shift to the other map, I really want folks to think about, does it make sense to move District 4 down into Madison Park and Broadmoor? Is that the best way to make that move from a north end district down to the south end? Because the way the population changed in this past 10 years, that's going to have to happen. But I want to move now to map. Sorry, I'm going to skip through all these. Map G is another one that I want folks to look at. So this map keeps Madison Park and Broadmoor into District 3. And instead of moving District 4 down into District 3, we move District 6 over there into Magnolia. And so this kind of keeps that central area whole into District 3. Another thing that this map does, which I really would love folks' input here, is it drastically changes the configuration of districts 4, 5, and 6. So on the left-hand side, you kind of see it's like a south. District 4 is a southeast district, District 6 is the southwest, and then District 5 is kind of a north end, like a far north district. This map makes District 4 kind of a south central district that includes Wallingford, the U District, and Fremont, and also a bit of Phinney Ridge. And then Districts 5 and 6 kind of cascade down the waterfronts of the north end, with District 6 including Ballard and Blue Ridge, and also Magnolia, which is new, and then District 5 including kind of the Sandpoint area. Here is the effects. Here is where people of color live across these districts. Yeah, 43rd District Dems.
Thanks. We had a question. Is there any way to enlarge the maps or post a link so we can see the border details a little bit more closely? Because, you know, street by street, it really makes a difference.
It does, yeah. I'm going to get to that. Yes, there is a way, and I'll get to that when I finish going through these slides. How much time do I have? I have a few minutes. So I think we'll only get to 2 map proposals here, but afterwards y'all can see all these slides and also be able to zoom in more detailedly to all of these maps. But yeah, going back to map G, the big effects here is look at median income, and it's also especially the renter population of District 4. I believe, yeah, it increases from 56% to 64%. So kind of, again, two big things that are happening here in this map opposed to the first map we saw is District 3 kind of maintains its central area shape with Madison Park and Broadmoor. And so while the map B proposal that map had less renters, less young people, or more renters and more young people. Map G's District 3 has less young people and less renters. However, District 4 kind of transforms into a very youth-based district. It's the only district in this map proposal by far that has a majority youth population. It's also a district that has 64% renters. So that this map kind of dramatically shifts District 4 into a very young and renter-focused district, whereas District 3 gets a little less young-focused and renter-focused. And this shows where young people live too. So District 4 becomes, a corridor with UW, the U District, Phinney Ridge, and Fremont that has a lot more young populations. Cool. I think that's all the time we have right now, but I want to share with y'all this document, which is kind of our RJS map guide. This map will give you a link to the slide deck that I presented for y'all to look at more in detail. And then also going down to each of these individual map descriptions below, you'll kind of get a name for each district, some key bullet points about what each map proposal does, and also a link to a Dave's redistricting map of each map proposal here. So I posted that link into the chat. I would love it if y'all could look through these maps on your own time. And then the most important thing that will really help our mapping process is to fill out this feedback form that includes just some information about you, ranking your top 3 RJS maps, ranking the commission maps. You can take a look at here, and then also answering some short questions that y'all as community experts can answer really well and help us inform how to better our districts, because I do recognize, especially map B isn't perfect right now. That was one of the first maps we drew, and we want to be able to improve them as much as possible. And filling out this feedback form and joining our coalition to continue to get updates about our own maps and our own mapping events will help us make the best districts possible as we advocate later in the summer to the commission. Cool. Thank you. I can take questions now. I see in the chat, can we enlarge? Yeah. The mapping guide will have links to Dave's redistricting that you can zoom in really closely to see street by street.
Hey, Andrew. Yeah, we have a couple chats that came, or a couple questions that came in. Who developed the various map proposals? Are any of the Rjs maps quite similar to the commission drawn maps?
Yeah, I was the one who physically drew the maps, although I used, I was also informed, of course, by federal law, state law, Voting Rights Act law, and city charter laws in drawing these maps, and also took into account community input from our coalition members when drawing these initial maps. Although I want to say, we're still getting the feedback. The maps aren't perfect. I don't know everything about every single neighborhood in Seattle. And so the maps are still being edited. We're making more proposals before we get to our final proposal sometime in the summer. And I did not look at this commission's maps and drawing those maps. Those maps are completely separate in terms of how they were drawn.
Okay, and I also have a question. Do you have a preference, Andrew? And this probably relates to you, Katie, too. Any favorite maps?
Great question.
I can go first. My favorite map is actually not one that I presented. I think my favorite map is map K so far. I'm a bit biased. I want to make sure that the South End is done right in this redistricting process. And I think that the map K's District 2 really accounts for keeping South End communities of color together, as well as really recognizing that I think the Central District has drastically changed in the past 10 years, and that there are communities of color in the Central District that I think belong more with communities of color in the South than they do with maybe some parts of the historic Central District that look very different from what they did 10, 20 years ago. And I think especially as the South End continues to gentrify, it's really important that communities of color across the South End and the Central District are stayed together and as a big majority as possible, because we know our majority is going to shrink with gentrification. So I think that it's important to keep that in mind as we look at the District 2 and 3 boundary.
I think one last question from Linda. How much were the Seattle neighborhood councils considered as communities of interest?
I got to admit that I was not aware of the specific neighborhood councils when drawing these in the minds of, or through the definition of communities of interest. So these current maps are not, but again, I appreciate pointing that out because that's something I just learned today, and I'll definitely be looking into those when updating our map proposals.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit, as I think, that I think from my experience with Seattle and the neighborhood associations is that they definitely have varying also like levels of political power across the city. Some are also not representative of the all the communities. Some are very focused on homeowners in terms of also access to meeting. And so I would say our coalition in general really focuses on being able to provide access beyond just those spaces. And so, but I think that in terms of the redistricting process, I'm actually not certain in terms of how much like neighborhood councils are really looked at by the commissioners. I'm sure looking at sort of the definitions, those are absolutely, definitions. And so I think that if that's sort of the area that most folks feel the most connected in terms of organizing, that's definitely a great way to sort of speak up and get your voices heard. I think we just have to close. One last thing I would say is that I just want to note that these are proposals. And so just to ask folks like not to really post them everywhere. We're going to be presenting to many other groups and community groups that are using these proposals, but it's really just, we just ask that you don't, take the slide deck and really put it up in a bunch of different places. But if you are using it to really, organize within, your own community, just it has, I think, listed a bunch of multiple places that it is the Redistricting Justice Seattle proposals, but I just wouldn't want to confuse folks. And then the last thing I'll note is that the maps that the commission put out originally really were actually just two were actually made by a machine. The other two were really just basically to make very basic examples of what the maps would look like if they were, I think, the closest to the current districts. And I think one other criteria. And so I definitely want to be really clear that those are not necessarily proposals that the commission is like put out with a bunch of input and a bunch of feedback. They're really truly just samples. And so their plan is that they will be putting out a map after all the feedback comes in, but just want to be really clear in terms of how those initial maps were created by the commission. I think we need to close. So if folks want to put questions in the chat, or if there's a way that we could capture those questions to Paul, and then those could get emailed to us after, we're happy to sort of follow up with folks individually.
Yeah, if you have additional questions, you can send them to me, put them in the chat, and we'll get them over to Andrew and Katie. So to kind of sum here, we've got all the links, the deck, the resources you provided. The ask that you have of us is take a look at the maps, use the feedback form to send you all feedback, so you can use that as part of the conversation that you are hoping to have with the Redistricting Commission. To advocate for equitable maps. Is that a fair summary? Oh, sorry, let me.
And also just to get the word out, like, please show up to those commission hearings. I think the more that, we can cut through the noise of all of the other things that are happening this year politically, I think it's really important that the commission really hears from community members and folks. And so we just encourage you to show up to the public hearings when you can, and get the word out. The redistricting is happening this summer.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on now. Let me just make sure we've, okay, we are moving on now to committee reports. First up, mutual aid. Dawn, are you here? You are here. Let's unmute you.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
We, as the body of the Mutual Aid Subcommittee, have agreed to support the organizations working on housing instability and joint efforts of sweep support, and wish to distribute $250 to Stop the Sweeps, $250 to Joy R., who works with many mutual aid organizations, but respectively with the Give a Damn Collective, and $250 to Jen Moon, who is the organizer of the Homeless Organizing Committee, CD Capitol Hill. We would also like to donate $250 to Trans Women of Color Solidarity Network and Housing Stability Support. This month's dispersal is more than it has been, at $1,000, with the addition to support Trans Women of Color Solidarity Network. The budget was approved at the April meeting, and the remaining amount through the end of the year is $2,250. To break down that further, in April, the budget was approved at $4,000, but for all of 2022, including the $750 that was dispersed in March, that leaves us with $2,250. This May's was significantly more. This leaves us with a fiscally responsible disbursement of $750 every other month. We will need to be more intentional about how we support organizations during doing grassroots services. Redistricting and work commitments have made quorum challenging at times, but we have been doing our best. We truly need more subcommittee members to help us make informed decisions, and I encourage you to join us if you can and have the capacity. And I also encourage you to do at least 2 mutual aid services for our community. I can recommend Food Not Bombs, Homeless Organizing Committee, Seattle, Give a Damn Collective, and many more are great. Stop the Sweeps always need our support, but we'll be re-strategizing long-term plans considering the recent sweeps. Woodland Park has taken a heavy emotional, psychological, physical, and fiscal toll on Stop the Sweeps, as well as resources, and they need help for the Weller Dearborn sweep coming up. That is really soon, I do believe tomorrow. I would highly recommend reaching out to them in DMs to see how you can help. And that is the end of my report.
Thanks. Do you have that written form so that Ellen can get it into the meeting notes, particularly the amounts? So, sorry, you're muted. We might have to unmute you. There you go. There
Yeah,
we go. Oh,
I will certainly put them down again in the chats, but I had previously put down the fiscal amounts or the dollar amounts in the general and in the mutual aid subcommittee chats already, and then had asked do a gentle nudge for this disbursement. But I will certainly put them in again.
okay, thank you. All right, next up, State Committee report. Amy, anything from you?
Sorry, I took a moment to unmute. I don't have anything particularly new to report, except that, you know, we're getting ready for the convention ahead. We're really glad that we were able to fill so many delegate spots, and delegates watch your emails for more info. And also just really want to remind folks that this is filing week, and, you know, get your friends and neighbors to file for PCO. It's really important that you do so before the deadline at the end of the week. Thanks.
Thank you. And Policy Committee, Camille.
Hello. So the Policy Committee for the last couple of meetings has been working on also state convention related stuff. We are proposing a couple of resolutions to bring to the state convention. One that would be on ensuring progressive revenue and the passage of a wealth tax in the coming session, as well as a transportation bill resolution, ensuring that the transportation bills that are proposed focus only on expanding public transit and not roads. So those are a couple of resolutions we're working on for the state convention. Another area of focus we talked about earlier is the Initiative 135. So there's a lot of opportunities for folks to get involved with this. 135 needs all of the help that it can get. It is a 100% volunteer-based campaign. And so if we want to get permanently affordable social housing to Seattle, we need everyone out there helping to gather signatures. So if you have volunteer time, I'm putting in the chat a place to sign up for signature gathering shifts. We have a big event coming up this Saturday, is the University District Street Fair, where folks will be meeting up, and then some folks will stay there to gather signatures, and then also be sent around the city to different locations to gather signatures after receiving some training and help on that. So if you want to sign up to signature gather, that is the place to go. And then also next Thursday, we are hosting a panel event on the environmental impact of development and how the Seattle social housing developer, as proposed by Initiative 135, would tackle the environmental impacts of housing and development. So to register for that, I'm putting the chat in the chat as well, the registration link for that. So like I said, really encourage folks to get out there and volunteer and signature gather and go to these educational events to learn more about how this initiative will operate in the city. Yeah, that's my report.
Thank you very much. Last report we have the PCO committee and Cody.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, so as Amy alluded to, and as Paul, as you were mentioning earlier in this meeting, this is filing week, and that matters if you want to run to be a PCO, right? That can be whether you are currently a PCO and want to continue serving your legislative district in that way, or if you're not a PCO right now and you would be interested in doing that. So I'm going to do a couple things right here. First, I'm going to share a link. Yeah, there we go. So this is a link to a King County website that both breaks down kind of how to apply to be a PCO and also has a pretty quick link of actually filling out that form. It also has a handy video that I really like, so I think it's kind of a nice one-stop shop. But yeah, for anyone who's not particularly familiar with it, PCOs are the volunteer backbone of the Democratic Party. They help us turn out the vote in their designated precinct. What we ask for in the 43rd, and I think what most other LDs ask for, is at least twice a year. So once in the primary and then once in the general election. So yeah, happy to help support that process in any way. If anyone's running into any issues or has any questions with the PCO application process. But being a PCO is a great way to serve your community. And I think I'm really excited to both continue working with a lot of you that I've gotten to know over the past few years, and to potentially get to know more of you and get even more energy injected in there. So I think that's pretty much it. I've sent out an email to all current PCOs, letting them know where that link is, how they can sign up. And we're also blasting out a message to membership, I believe. So yeah, should be covering all the bases. But if anybody has any questions, like I said, feel free to give me a ring. I'll put my number here in the chat. And otherwise, have a good evening.
Cody, can you also throw your email in the chat too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's me. There we go.
All right. Thank you, Cody. I will reiterate all these statements. Having PCOs is super important. The more PCOs we have from the 43rd, the more votes we get with the state party. We need you to help us get out the vote. We need you to help build a healthy and strong 43rd. So if you are at all interested, please take a look at the links that Cody provided. Hit Cody up on email or phone to get more details on what being a PCO means, and please do consider running. All right, and with that, we'll move on to the new business and go to the order. I will open it up here. If anyone has good of the order, please raise your hand and we will call on you. Arshia.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Arshia. I am Representative Adam Smith's political director. Just wanted to come and give a very quick legislative update now that the House is back in session. This past week, the House has taken two pretty important steps that I wanted to come and talk to you about. First, they passed a resolution that would, the House passed a resolution in support of congressional workers unionizing. This is an issue that's very important to Adam. He firmly believes that unions are the backbone of our workers, strengthening wages, better working conditions, and increasing benefits. So he hopes the Senate will take that up. And the House has also passed a bill called the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. This bill is designed to increase access to workforce training programs and increase the number of people going into trades. This bill specifically would actually increase access for underserved communities and underserved individuals. Adam had an amendment included to provide food assistance to young people in these programs, since that's with these underserved communities, that's an issue that we see come up time and time again. And so that has now passed the House. It's on to the Senate. And we hope to see that. We hope to see some kind of movement there from the Senate. And I also want to plug that this Saturday, Adam is going to be having his first in-person town hall since the pandemic. It's going to be at 10 a.m. at McMicken Elementary in SeaTac. I will, if anyone has any questions or comments or just has anything in general they want to talk about Adam or Congress or the House of Representatives, reach out to me anytime. I'm always happy to be a resource. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other good of the order? Boga?
Oh, yes, thank you. So on May, I'll try to be as quick as possible. On May 12th, I heard Congress people Jayapal and Raskin, law professor Ryan Goodman, and others warn of the extreme threats to democracy we now face. Holding accountable the MAGA faction perpetrators of the January 6th attack is crucial for meeting these threats. Polling by Anat Shenker-Osorio shows a large majority of voters want accountability and justice. A key step toward accountability and justice is viewing the evidence amassed by the Select Committee to be shown at their public hearings starting June 9th. Individuals and organizations across the country are hosting watch parties. Fix Democracy First is hosting virtual watch parties. That's a Seattle-based organization. To sign up, go to the Fix Democracy First website and select events. Thank you.
Thanks. You can send us that link and we'll get it in the chat to everybody. And Tim.
Yes, thank you. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of the Spirit of the Waters totem pole journey and the fact that there's going to be an event this Thursday, the 19th of May, on the University of Washington campus at Intellectual House from 6 to 8 in the evening. And this is being led by a number of tribal nations in the Northwest, and it's focusing on the effort to try to breach the Snake River, lower 4 Snake River dams. So again, that event at UW campus Intellectual House will be this Thursday, the 19th, 6 p.m. Thanks.
Is there a website with information?
I can provide that in the chat.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other good of the order? All right. Well, I'll ask another time. Do you want to cut things short? If there's anyone who wants to say anything. All right. I'm not seeing anything. While we wait for Tim to get us that that link so we can get out to everyone. There we go, fixdemocracyfirst.org. Let me just remind everyone, next month, June, let me look at the calendar again, June 21st, 7 p.m. is our next general meeting. It is our endorsements meeting. Please come to that. Please talk to your friends, neighbors, and family members, and your coworkers who are in the 43rd. Ask them to join the 43rd so that they can become voting members of the 43rd and vote in the endorsements next month, June 21st. We have a raucous time doing our endorsements. And with that, I will adjourn this May meeting of the 43rd. Thank you, everyone.